We're starting breaking ground with breaking news coming in. Iran's foreign minister has condemned the US's attack on the Iranian warship in the Indian Ocean. He has said, and I'm going to quote him here, the US has perpetrated an atrocity at sea 2,000 miles away from Iran's shores. Frigate Dena, a guest of India's Navy carrying almost 130 sailors, was struck in international waters without warning. Mark my words, he says, the US will come to bitterly regret the precedent it has said. Gauri is joining me live on our top story. Gauri, there's not only condemnation but a warning to the US in that same statement issued by Iran.
And Vedika, it's very clear that these are international waters in which the Iranian frigate was struck. So when one thing is to actually strike on Iranian soil, this is international waters, and this is actually extension of Sri Lanka's exclusive economic zone. So to that extent, there's been a huge escalation on the part of America in terms of how it sees Iranian assets wherever, in whichever part of the world it may be, as those that it wishes to strike. Of course, there's going to be retaliation that will come in from Iran, and that is the kind of commentary that's coming from Iran is indicative of this, that they are now going to escalate their attack. So what is likely is that the American bases, American assets that are in the region, well within striking range of Iran's missile base and drone base, are now likely to be bigger targets, even more vulnerable targets going forward. So that is really how one should be reading this, that a sharp escalation has taken place from America, and Iran, of course, is now looking to retaliate and show and give a message to America and to the world that you can't go ahead and strike Iranian vessels, that too in international waters.
With me, Gauri, Aditya Rajkol joining us live on Breaking Ground from Israel as well. Aditya, could this now mean that Iran could attempt to disrupt maritime routes beyond the Gulf?
Well, certainly so. Now, Iran will do whatever is in their kitty, whatever they are capable of. Although the Iranian Navy is not very capable, they don't have a very strong Navy, they don't have many carriers or ships or vessels. Already, more than 20 of their vessels and frigates have come under attack, destroyed and sunk by the United States over the last 3 days. But this is a war, or this is a conflict where we haven't seen any rules of engagement. We don't see a particular area where this is confined in. We've already seen land as well as air being used over the last 6 days continuously, missiles being fired from one country to another, and at least 7 to 8 countries being engulfed into it across the Middle East for no reason, without any provocation from their side. And now it is the international waters where a fresh flashpoint is developing with the attack that has happened in the international waters in Indian Ocean. This particular Iris Dena was in India for event in Visakhapatnam and later in Goa. It was on its way to Iran when it was attacked by the US submarine. But the big question really is that US hasn't cared for any sensitivities involved in this. There are reports that during such events, there are no ammunitions that such ships or vessels or frigates carry. So perhaps there were no ammunitions on board, and there wasn't any kind of provocation towards US from this particular frigate. But yet the submarine was attacked, just like Pete Hegseth said, that the Iranian frigate thought that they are safe in the international waters, but clearly not. The US submarine was after them. They were tracking them very closely, and just at the right moment, yesterday early morning, attacked them. And immediately there have been heavy casualties that have been reported. And now a warning coming in from the Iranian foreign minister, clearly indicating that this is an atrocity at sea and there will be consequences, and US will be bearing the brunt for that.
Aditya, this also throws up several questions. There's been so much criticism when it comes to the US, where a lot of analysts have been asking, did Donald Trump have a roadmap going into this conflict, or rather, I can even call it a war now, but this really expands this conflict. It goes beyond the Gulf region. How has Sri Lanka reacted to this? What has their stand been? Because several big questions, like I said, emerging. Was Sri Lanka informed perhaps about this or not is one big question as well. What has their stand been? What has their response been to this massive incident just off their coast?
Well, Vedika, firstly, I don't think US is in a habit or on a protocol to inform anyone, be it the Indian Navy or the Sri Lankan Navy. In this particular case, I think they would have been waiting for them to enter the international waters and then attack. to not violate any other, sections, etc. But talking about Donald Trump, I think he has given a free hand to his forces. He has given a free hand to both the Department of War as well as the CIA and other wings of the government that are involved in this Operation Epic Fury over the last 6 days. And there is only reaction that is coming from the Sri Lankan Navy spokesperson, Commander Sampath, is the fact that a distress sign came in early yesterday morning, and immediately the Sri Lankan Navy tried to reach the spot, and they found rafts. They found some people over those rafts and also dead bodies lying all around. And immediately they swooped into action and rescue operation was started. But many casualties now being reported. We don't have the exact number yet. Perhaps the Sri Lankan Navy can release a fresh statement later in the day. But this is a new flashpoint that is developing. The conflict in the Middle East is not restricted to land and air in this particular region of the Middle East where I am right now, but also now to the international waters. The Strait of Hormuz had become a flashpoint where Iran had begun a blockade, not allowing any other oil tankers or ships or vessels to pass by. And now it does seem international waters is also the new flashpoint where the US submarine is attacking Iranian ships and vessels and frigates all across and making the Iranian Navy completely incapable of surmounting any attack or having any kind of a blockade in place.
All right, Aditya, Rajkol and Gauri, thanks for joining me live there. That's a big story we're tracking here on Breaking Ground. The responses from all stakeholders, of course, will be here first on Breaking Ground and NDTV that we will be bringing to you. Several crew members aboard an Iranian ship were killed after an attack by US submarine on the Indian Ocean. At least 87 people were killed in the torpedo attack. Sri Lankan authorities have rescued over 30 people who have been hospitalized. US Defense Secretary Hegseth confirmed the strike at a press conference in Washington, D.C., calling it the first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. In the latest, Iran foreign minister has called it an atrocity and has warned that the United States of America will bitterly regret this. Iris Dena was returning from India after participating in the 2026 International Fleet Review in Visakhapatnam when it was reportedly attacked and later sank off the southern coast of Sri Lanka.
An American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death. The first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. Like in that war, back when we were still the War Department, we are fighting to win.
While doing search operation, we found people floating on the floating in the water and rescued them. And later on, subsequently, when we inquired them, we found that those people are belonging to the Iranian ship, and we understood that they need prompt medical attention, and we swiftly transferred them to the Karapitiya Teaching Hospital, and right now they are undergoing medical treatment. We could not find the ship, but we found slight oil patch and the floating life raft in that particular area, and also we have found some dead bodies in that particular area, and we suspect these bodies are belongs to the same ship because we found these things in the particular search and rescue area.
Joining me live here on Breaking Ground is Abhijit Singh, retired naval officer. Mr. Singh, thank you so much for speaking to me here on Breaking Ground. Of course, this is our top focus through the day here on NDTV 24/7. My first question to you, sir, a US torpedo strike on an Iranian vessel in the Indian Ocean marks a significant escalation. What does it tell us about how the geography of this conflict is now expanding, sir?
Well, this is certainly an escalation of sorts and a very uncomfortable escalation for India. The fact is that this particular vessel was on a naval diplomatic mission. It had participated in the Milan exercises and it was headed back. And although it was taken out in international waters, these waters are very close to India's EEZs, and certainly well within the Sri Lankan EEZs. It's what many maritime experts in India are describing as India's backyard, India's strategic space. And so that means that this war is literally now on our doorsteps. I have made the argument earlier that there is always a dilemma that neutrals face in war, which is that you cannot act out of any ethical humanitarian compulsions. And so in that sense,
Right.
I don't see how India could have done things differently, but this is an escalation.
But Mr. Singh, until now, much of the tension was concentrated around the Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. What does the conflict moving into the wider Indian Ocean mean strategically?
This is now a no holds barred battle between Iran and the US. And this is definitely now going to be played out not just in the Persian Gulf and in the Middle Eastern waters of the Middle East, but also perhaps in the Central Indian Ocean, in the Eastern Indian Ocean. I don't see too many other attacks happening in these waters. This was just, I would put it as an opportunistic attack because there was one Iranian vessel that was returning from deployment here. And although it was a diplomatic deployment, the US decided to create an example or make a show of force by taking down this vessel, which to me seems a bit reckless and inflammatory. But that's how war is. War is quite ruthless, and that is how hostiles are expected to behave.
Mr. Singh, I would request you to stay with me for a moment because we want our viewers also to know that NDTV's managing editor Shiva Roor had spoken to Sri Lankan MP Namal Rajapaksa. Here's what he had to say.
A warship transiting international waters and being sunk. Your country's Navy has rescued many of the people in this ship that has been sunk by a US Navy submarine. How do you see this, Namal? Welcome.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, indeed, because as you correctly stated earlier, the war is happening miles away, and we can see movements in the Indian Ocean and just 40 nautical miles from the Gulf in Sri Lanka. So, which is a serious concern for Sri Lanka and also Indian Ocean, and I'm sure for India as well, as to national security and how these movements are happening, especially that vessel being a guest of the Indian naval exercise. And at the same time, I think the government of Sri Lanka must answer to the people of Sri Lanka and to the rest of the world whether they were aware of this particular situation or this particular attack on this vessel, or they were kept on dark. If they have been kept on dark, then they have to bring this up with the relevant authorities and especially with the United States. And if not, if they were aware of this kind of movement in the Indian Ocean and also in the Sri Lankan economic zone, or the EZ, we call it, of the international waters, then the government must make sure that they inform this properly to the Sri Lankan people and also, have a proper broader dialogue with the regional partners as well.
Do you think this needs to be taken up with the United States, the fact that it's happened, just off the coast of your country? Yes, in international waters, but like you said, in the EEZ, that has many strategic and security implications, Namal.
Yes, of course. I mean, especially when it comes to the Indian Ocean, because as we all know, Indian Ocean is something that is active at the moment compared to the Gulf region and also the most of the other parts of the world, looking at what's happening in the Gulf region at the moment. So this is something that Sri Lanka has to take very seriously. If the government had a dialogue with the United States and they were aware of this particular action, then they had to make sure why they kept it as a secret from the public and the parliament, and how they got into that agreement. If not, how come such an operation take place in our waters in the Indian Ocean without our knowledge? And this is something I believe the government of India and also the the Asian region has to come together and look at and to take this particular incident very seriously.
All right, so why is this such a big incident strategically, geopolitically, this new twist in the Middle East war? Why is it so big? Firstly, it marks the Middle East war spilling outside its core theater into the Indian Ocean region, which in itself has massive implications. The direct implications for Iran's naval posture is another big point to note here. Like you had Aditya Rajkol point out, it's not about the ground and air anymore. It's even the sea that is now a part of this huge conflict in the Middle East, which has, of course, spilled over. The Indian Ocean is a key east-west shipping corridor. You have so many vessels passing through it. And now with Iran condemning the attack and claiming that there will be a bitter retaliation that they have vowed against the United States of America, your guess will be as good as mine on what Iran's next step will be. Mr. Singh still with us. Mr. Singh, the Indian Ocean carries some of the world's most critical shipping lanes. How worried should global trade and energy markets be about further escalation at sea, sir?
I think global energy markets should be very worried because this, what we've seen just over the past 24 hours is a massive escalation in what could happen now in the Indian Ocean. As I said earlier, that I do not foresee too many attacks happening in the Eastern Indian Ocean, primarily because the Iranian Navy might not have too many assets in this part of the world. But this definitely tells you that the shipping lanes close to the Gulf of Hormuz definitely are going to be targeted. And this means that energy flows will definitely be impacted by this conflict.
Mr. Singh, thank you so much for joining me here on Breaking Ground. Appreciate your perspective and your time.